I was thinking at the first service how that's kind of reminiscent to me, like "You May Be Seated" is very reminiscent to me of watching the NFL. And here's why. For some reason, I don't understand why, but for some reason these guys in the NFL, they cannot squeeze their own water bottle. Has anybody noticed this? Like I can do all of these amazing athletic things, and when it comes to drinking water, I got this for you. Like, you may be seated. I don't know. That's where my mind goes. Well, there's still Christmas decorations in the lobby, and I'm wearing Christmas socks. So, Merry Christmas to you. And also, Happy New Year. We're kind of like in between Christmas and New Year's. So if anybody has any good ideas of new terms for that, feel free to write that on a connection card and submit that. And I'll be sure to use it next year. It's planning ahead. I wanted to say, if you're newer to church or newer to this church, both of us are going to be doing a new thing today. You're going to hear me preach the final message of 2017, and this is the first time I've ever preached the final message of 2017. Right? This is the only time I'll get to do this. It's pretty cool. Hold your applause. I'm guessing that, with Christmas and all that, most of us received some sort of a gift, or we gave gifts to people. And I know that for me, I'm finding that the older I get, the more that I enjoy giving gifts, right? Anybody else notice that? Am I the only one? I guess I'm the only generous person here. I don't know. You're welcome. Don't make any mistake. I love receiving gifts, hint, and I'm still receiving them until 12 o'clock tonight. There's something about getting new things and opening up new things that is really, really fun, or seeing people open a new thing that you've gotten them. It's really, really fun, especially when you receive or you give a thing that like the other person didn't ask for, but like you hit the nail right on the head. You know what I'm talking about? This shirt, for example, it was my deepest desire to dress and look as much like Kyle Rainey as possible. And my wife just gave this to me. I didn't ask for it, and now I get to live that reality. It's super awesome. Yeah, I agree with that really, really small hand clap over there. But yeah, so getting and receiving new things, and then, we got like new car smell is like this thing, and then there's always I'm one of these, I don't know if it's creepy, I don't know, it might be a little bit creepy, but I should probably explain before I let you think too long on that, shouldn't I? He just said he's creepy, let's get out of here. But like, just smell the top of a baby's head. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Like that new baby smell? Oh, I don't know. What is it about that? It's like fear for the child's life. Like, whoa, man, back off there, vacuum cleaner boy. Has anybody ever gotten a new gift or given one, and then like within the same day, sometimes within the hour, the person that received it, or maybe you've broken the gift, or you've lost it? Yeah? She's like, oh yeah. So I was thinking about this, and I remembered my brother-in-law who lives in Hollywood, and he's an actor, and he was in Grey's Anatomy for a little while. I know. I'm not recommending the show, by the way. I'm just saying he was in it. He loves to get toys. He loves toys. He's a kid at heart. So we got him a toy. This is maybe like 10 or 12 years ago. He got a toy. It was a flying, I don't know what it was, like a flying thing, airplane or I don't know. And everybody got done unwrapping their stuff, and he said, well, I need to go. He went outside immediately to play with this toy. He, gets it started, takes flight, goes straight up and into the top of a fir tree. I mean, it was like 100 feet up in the air. I was like, well, that was the best 30 seconds of Christmas right there. Done. So because I'm standing up here and I'm going to talk to you about some things that I hope that are true, I like to have my facts straight. So I texted him to make sure that I had this story accurate, okay? Just so you know the lengths to which I went to give you accurate details. I said, hey, do you remember you got this thing for the 100? And he's like, oh, yeah. I said, did that happen? That's a thing that happened to you, right? He said, oh, yeah, that's happened lots of times. I'm like, okay. So, and then he says this. He's like, do you remember what happened the next Christmas? Isn't that great? I was like, no, I don't. He said, well, you guys gave me a helicopter. There's two things here. He learned something, but we didn't in the gift giving, right? He learned, I'm going to go. So he went to a parking lot area, no trees, wide open. I'm going to fly this, I think we call it a chopper in the layman's terms. And he starts to fly this helicopter. And last I checked, you don't want, helicopters should be, you don't want them you don't want them like that. His went like that. This is 5 minutes. Takes off. It broke into like 5 pieces. 2 years in a row, a total of maybe 8 minutes with both of these gifts. So there you go. And sometimes for Christmas, we don't just give stuff. We don't give things. Sometimes we give our hearts. And we can all relate. We can all relate to like a broken heart. We can relate to George, for example. Just soak that in for a second. He kind of looks a little bit like Aslan would look, I think. In last Christmas, what he did, he gave his heart. But the very next day, do you know what happened? That person gave it away. Isn't that sad? Okay. So we just wrapped up celebrating the Christmas season, and did you see that he had a cross earring? Yeah. See, I think these things through. So we just got done with this gift-giving season, giving and receiving, and we're celebrating this gift, this really huge gift of this baby named Jesus. Okay. And I'm sure that as with any new baby or new family, Mary and Joseph, the parents, they were experiencing lots of new things. And I was relating to them a little bit. I was remembering when Lisa and I adopted our son, Jason. When we finally adopted him, and he was in our clutches. He was 3 months old, and we'd gotten a phone call. Just a random phone call to the church that I worked at, and the receptionist said, yeah, I know a couple that was hoping to adopt, and we had looked at a couple of other different options that hadn't worked out or they had fallen through, and that kind of breaks you a little bit. And we're like, yeah, I guess we'll look into this one too, And so we got the lawyer and did all that stuff. We got a phone call almost exactly a month later, a month after we started the paperwork, that said, so all this stuff is done, all this paperwork is signed down in Arizona, so why are you still in Oregon? Why aren't you down picking up your son? Am I supposed to be? Is that a thing that I do now? And we went down to Arizona. We met our son Jason at a gas station. And I was wearing a Krispy Kreme t-shirt because I believe in the good news. And 11 days after that meeting, we're driving home with a baby in our back seat, in a car seat, settled down. That was very new, very new. We had a month to prepare for a baby. I know, that's what I'm talking about. Woo! So we're driving back, and we stop at a gas station. We're going to go inside. I'm excited. I'm like, I'm going to get some sunflower seeds. And, because when I do sunflower seeds while I'm driving, I just don't get groggy. I can stay awake for hours. It's weird. And, water and all that stuff. And Lisa and I are walking towards the store away from our car, and we both kind of stopped. We're like, what? I feel like I'm forgetting something. She's like, I know. What did we leave something in Arizona? And I was like, oh, you know what we're forgetting? There's a baby in our car. I go back. I mean, it was brand new, right? Are we the only parents that forgot our baby in our car? I mean, it was only for 5 seconds. It's fine. It's fine. It's brand new. And so we've got Mary and Joseph. They've got a brand new baby. There's lots of newness happening. She's dealing with this idea of like, okay, I just gave birth to a kid. Never done that before. Also, I've never had sex before, so this whole thing, like, I'm the only one that I'm aware of that's ever done this. That's new. Joseph is like, okay, I got a kid now. He's like a husband, and he's got a kid now. And then they also are aware that this child is really special, that he's going to change the world. Anybody relate to that? No? They're the only ones? It's this brand new thing for them. And what I love about this story of Jesus, of God really coming as a human being in Jesus, is that it's true. I love that. I love that it's a true story. Because we know that Jesus really lived, right? And in order for him to really live, that means he really needed to be born. Yeah, elementary, isn't it? So Jesus was God in human flesh, and he was born on this earth for one purpose, and that is to redeem all of creation back to himself and to make all things new. And when you leave here today, I hope that obviously I want you to remember this picture of George Michael and all that stuff, but I want you to remember that through Jesus, all things can be made new. So, when we're born, we're perfect little babies, and we haven't done anything wrong, really. And we're a lot like the universe or the world at its conception. It's brand new, and God calls his creation good. He says it multiple times in the creation account. At the very beginning of the Bible, he says, I made this, and it was good. I did this, and it was good. So it's good. And then God creates man, okay? And he creates man in his image. And he does it, he gives mankind, he gives us a gift that's really unique. He gives us an ability to choose. He gives us a thing called free will. And with free will, we can do a thing that is really incredible. We can choose to love. Isn't that cool? Okay. So, if we remove free will from the picture, instead of telling my wife, I love you, okay, which is a choice, instead of that, I would say something more along the lines of, I am genetically inclined to be near you for the purpose of procreating and passing my DNA to offspring. And she'd say, you too. And I think that if we're robots, that's probably totally romantic for robots. Like, that's great. You are making my circuits overload, which would also be good, I guess. I don't know. So with this power to choose to love and to create beauty and to put love and care into things, we also have a power to destroy, and we have a power to break things. We get to choose to follow after God, or we get to choose to turn and walk away from God. See, well, why does God let bad things happen and all that stuff? It's like, well, God created everything and it was good. I don't know that he does that. I don't know that he is making bad things happen, because he gave Adam and Eve, human beings, over to be stewards of the earth, didn't he? He gave that to them. And then they made the choice to make things bad. Why does God allow bad things to happen to people and all that stuff? Well, because he gave us free will. And we choose to do bad things. God is responsible for the fact of free will, but we are responsible for our acts of free will. So, and this in turn, when we choose these things that are destructive or sinful, we hurt people around us because sin doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not isolated, okay? And so this whole idea of, well, what I do behind closed doors is none of your business, and if I'm not hurting anybody, then it's okay, and all that stuff, like, I'm not saying it like that to mock the phrase, and I'm not saying it to pass a judgment. I'm just saying those phrases don't fly, okay? Because God created each one of us to be a perfect person or individual. He had a plan for us, and then we choose to reject that plan and reject God and push him away. And in doing so, we hurt ourselves and become something different. And in doing that, we hurt the people around us. So the point is, when we choose the opposite of God's love and God's best for us, it affects everything. But we see in the beginning, everything is good, right? And then we know the story that there's these two naked people, Adam and Eve, and they make this choice, and now we're all doomed. We're all damned to hell in some way, right? And we inherit the repercussions of that choice because sin and rebellion does not happen in a vacuum, okay? So my point is that things get broken, we break them, and at this point, as I was prepping this, all I could think about was the Brady Bunch. And I think it's clear why. Or not. Here's what I was thinking about the Brady Bunch, though. And a quick thing, for those of you that don't know who the Brady Bunch is, which is un-American, I urge you to go watch it. But the Brady Bunch is the Rainey family before the Rainey family was the Rainey family. Now, for those of you that are like, I don't understand what that. Kyle Rainey is our lead pastor here. He and his wife have 9 kids. Okay? Plus them, that's 11 people living in their house. And so we have right there, we have a gospel community that's living together right there, okay? The Brady Bunch is like this blended family, and there's 6 kids, which at the time was like, 6 kids is crazy. There's an episode where the 3 boys are playing basketball upstairs in their room, and they're shooting a ball at a trash can. Pretty innocent. Bobby, the youngest, it's always the youngest, he's like, Mom always said, don't play ball in the house. And it's like, okay, Bobby, we get it. You're good, okay? And so Peter, the middle guy, he like grabs the ball, and I don't even know it's so weird when he does it. Watch the clip on YouTube, just look up Brady Bunch broken vase, and Peter like grabs the ball and yells slam dunk or something and spins around and then just throws the ball out of his bedroom door, and the trash can is right there. It bounces down the stairs, it hits this brand new vase that their mom bought. Vase falls, breaks on the ground. Okay? They're in a conundrum. They got to fix the vase and get it all mended and put together before the parents get home. So all the kids, the 3 sisters and the 3 brothers, they all work on it together, and they glue the vase together, and it's good to go. It looks pretty good. And they're at the dinner table. The mom just got new flowers from the dad, and she's like, hey, let's put it in the brand new vase I got. And the kids are like, oh no, worst case scenario. They put it in the vase and they bring it over to the table. Well, aren't you going to go put water in it? Flowers need water to live. Okay, so water in it, bring it back, and then they're just all silent, just like eating and staring at the vase. And then sure enough, what happens? Water just starts to gush out of this thing all over the place. Okay, we're about to get deep with the Brady Bunch. You ready? Probably deeper than we ought to with the Brady Bunch. Okay, clearly, in the Bible, we can see that there is a problem. And I would even propose that we don't even need the Bible to look around and see that there's a problem. Things aren't as they should be. Okay? Because we're broken, the world is broken, and we have failed for a very long time to effectively glue these broken pieces back together. Okay? And this water just keeps gushing out everywhere. There's a problem. Without Jesus, we are effectively gluing stuff back together, and it's leaking everywhere. So there's a letter in the New Testament of the Bible. So I'm giving you some pieces, and I'm going to hopefully tie a bow around this at the end for you, all right? In the Bible, in the New Testament, it's the last, a fourth of the Bible, there's a letter called Romans. It's written to people in Rome, and it's written by a guy named Paul. Paul has to say this about humanity's brokenness. And I'm going to give you just 3 examples of dozens and dozens throughout the whole Bible. Okay, Romans 3:10. There is no one righteous. No, not one. Romans 3:23. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So when you see that dude or that gal that looks like they got it all together and they're just so Jesus-y and churchy and like they just, sweat communion, they're so holy, all have sinned, all. Then we have this guy named Isaiah back in the Old Testament. He's a prophet. He wrote in Isaiah 53:6, and there's just a snippet of this verse. It says, we all like sheep have gone astray. Okay, all of us have turned from our shepherd, God, and we have left. All right? All of us are broken, and all of us sin, and all of us miss the mark. So, Happy New Year. So here's the point of me kind of being a little bit of a downer to start with. And I think that of all world religions, Christianity is the only one that admits and faces life's biggest issue and problem. And it's the only one that really provides a solution. You can't solve a thing if you don't admit that it needs solving. So before we can address a problem, we need to recognize that there is one. So here's what I love. And it's a simple fact of reality that things aren't right here on earth or in our hearts. And it's a simple fact that Jesus was really born and he really lived. Now, any scholar worth the paper their degree is printed on agrees with the fact that Jesus Christ actually existed. Those that don't are typically called fringe, and there's a reason that they're on the fringe, okay? So we've got Jesus, and now we say, okay, so what? We got Jesus, so what? How can this guy from 2,000 years ago fix anything in my life today? Like, can he do anything better in my life than the glue that I've been using to hold my pieces together? Okay, so if he really lived and he really did walk around teaching, we need to consider what he said. One of the biggest primary teachings that Jesus had was regarding his own identity. Okay? Jesus talked a lot about who he was. And he made a claim to be God. So we need to examine. If you make this claim, and you made this claim, are you really that? Right? There's a guy named Hank Hanegraaff. His nickname, this is a cool nickname, his nickname is the Bible Answer Man. How cool is that? That seems like a lot of pressure. I don't know if I'd want that. This is what he has to say about this answer. He says, Mormons answer this question by saying that Jesus is the spirit brother of Lucifer. Jehovah's Witnesses answer this brother by saying he's the archangel Michael. New Agers, which is a pretty generic term, say Jesus is an avatar or enlightened messenger. Jesus, however, answered by claiming that he was God. Okay? And you can confirm this in the Bible in lots of different places. I'm just going to give you a few where Jesus confesses his deity in John 5:18, John 8:58, John 10:30 through 33, Mark 14:61 through 62, and there are a lot more either direct or indirect references to his deity throughout Scripture. So we get to make a decision. And it's a very old proposition that was made popular by a guy named C.S. Lewis. Anybody know C.S. Lewis? Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, I just want to make sure. Oh, wow. And I made an Aslan reference earlier. Okay, good. I'm on it. This is what he says. It's an argument called the Lord Liar or Lunatic, all right? He says, and I'm quoting here, I am trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him being Jesus. They say, I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. This is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would be a lunatic, on the level with the man who says he is a poached egg. Or else, he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open for us. He didn't intend to. Now, it seems to me obvious that he is neither a lunatic nor a fiend, and consequently, however strange and terrifying or unlikely it may seem, I have to accept the view that he was and is God. So I've read that argument a lot of times, and I've actually talked about it with people, and I get a common rebuttal, which is, well, I don't think he's any of that. I think he's legend. They add another L, Lord, liar, lunatic, legend. I feel like we've already established that that's not the case. But in the New Testament, we have these 4 books that make up the first part of it, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are eyewitness accounts of Jesus' life and his works and things like that. Scholars of ancient texts like that will tell you that typically it takes 2 generations for a legend to take place and to spread. 2 generations. It's about 80 years. Okay? Why 80 years? Well, because by the time 80 years has passed, the eyewitnesses are usually dead. So, a myth or a story can expand and change, and no one's there to correct it as it goes. But we can look at the book of Mark, for example. Mark is a guy named Mark, who had the Apostle Peter dictating to him, and he wrote down the words, and Peter's an eyewitness to what Jesus did, and that book has been dated to within 15 to 20 years of Jesus' resurrection. Not 80 or more. We see these other gospels that aren't included in the Bible that were written 80 or more years after, and those are legend. That's why they're not in the Bible. Isn't that interesting? I think it is. If you're curious about reading more of that stuff, or like you like to study those types of things, I've got a book for you. You can write it down. It's by a guy named J. Warner Wallace. The book is called Cold Case Christianity, and he does a really cool job of mapping out the train of disciples from the original apostles to who they discipled, to who they discipled, to who they discipled, and that the word that they passed on didn't lose its potency and didn't change. It's really interesting. All this to say, we've got a guy claiming to be God and backing up that claim with amazing teaching in his life and his works as documented in the Bible and in outside sources. Not only that, but he backed up his claim of deity in the resurrection. Have you guys heard of the resurrection before? It's Easter, yeah? All right. If you ever wanted to disprove Christianity, all you have to do is disprove the resurrection, and you have succeeded in toppling the entire religion. Did you know that? So if anybody in here is looking to topple Christianity, there you go. Go and dismantle the resurrection. So the same guy, Paul, the same guy that wrote the letter to the Romans, he wrote a letter to the Corinthian churches. He says in 1 Corinthians 15:12, he says this, "But if it is preached that Christ has been raised from the dead, how can some of you say that there is no resurrection of the dead? If there is no resurrection of the dead, then not even Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith." So we've got this pile of evidence that's stacking up. By the way, I've also got, if anybody's interested, I geek out on this stuff. People that have been around me when I talk about this know that I geek out, but I've actually got a really nifty little handout that you can take with you that just come talk to me. I'll try to get you a copy today if I have one, but it's an argument for the resurrection of Jesus. It's not trying to say, hey, like, this is exactly what happened, and I know for a fact, 100%, although I do believe 100% that it happened, but it gives us proofs to kind of look at and say, like, well, this seems pretty reasonable. Like, I'm going to go where the evidence leads, and the evidence seems to be leading that Jesus really resurrected. Okay, it's this handout. It's got list of 12 things that biblical and non-biblical or Christian and non-Christian scholars all agree these 12 things happened. All of them, okay? And those are that Jesus died, he was put in a tomb, the tomb was found empty, things like that. They all agree on that. And then you flip it over and there's this cool chart. If you're interested, let me know. I like that kind of stuff. Okay, so we've got this pile of evidence. And this pile of evidence about Jesus and his resurrection and the fact that he really lived, the fact that we are really broken and he was sent as a solution, culminates at the end of the Bible. There's this book called Revelation, okay? And it's written by a guy named John. John is one of the original 12 disciples, okay? And he's older. John is older at this time, and he's on this island, and he gets a vision. And so he writes down his vision. And if you're interested in reading a really crazy book in the Bible, read the book of Revelation, and then ask Kyle to explain the whole thing to you. He'll thank me for that. So John sees this and he writes this down. He says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away." Okay? Then a little bit later, he says this, "He who was seated on the throne," talking about Jesus, "said, 'I am making everything new.' Then he said, 'Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true.'" So, like any good preacher, I tried to look into the Greek words and try to figure out, well, what is the real meaning of "I'm making all things new"? And what was he really trying to communicate with that? And I didn't find anything on it. I couldn't find, every time I read through a commentary, it actually skipped that phrase. There was no explanation for it. So I could only come to one conclusion. It actually just means what it says. I am making all things new. And that's what Jesus came to do. At the very beginning, in creation, he made all things new, and they were good, and that includes us. And in his love and wisdom, he gave us the ability to choose. And we choose, and we continue to choose just about everything but God. And this is our rebellion. This is our sin. This is why Kyle, who usually preaches, stands up here and says, we are rebels clinging to the mercies of Jesus. See, Jesus wants to make us new. Better than a glued together vase. Jesus wants to redeem us to a state of newness. And Jesus, God in human form, he stepped into our brokenness. And that's what we just celebrated in Christmas, right? That's why Christmas is so important. Because it's the turning of the tide. Christmas marks the beginning of the end of death and shame and sadness and brokenness. It marks the end of those things. Jesus, walking with him means we have a hope in the future while we walk with him in the present. And I think that part of the brokenness, part of the newness that Jesus creates in our brokenness is that he uses that. Anybody that's been in ministry, that has done work to serve other people, knows that God has this really cool way of taking this broken part of your heart, mending that broken part, and then inviting you or introducing you to people that have similar broken parts of their hearts. And he uses your brokenness to minister to other people. If you know anybody that's been a Christian for any length of time and has been actively serving, ask them if that's true. I will say that it's probably 100% true. I'd be willing to say that. And this is the very essence of our mission as a church body here, is to reveal Christ to the heart of our city and to be the church where God has planted us. It's to serve. And so Jesus, if we choose to let him, will come along and he'll repair us where we're at. Okay? Now, Dan Bernard, who played drums this morning, and he's our creative arts director, I asked him to find he found that image for me of the broken plate. And then he said, hey, I also found this really cool, these really cool images of this Japanese method of repairing broken pottery and dishes. It's called kintsugi, all right? Basically, it's the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer dusted or mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum. The idea behind it is mend so it can be used again, but even more so, it's turned into a work of art. Okay? Then it went on to say, as a philosophy, it treats breakage and repair as part of the history of an object, rather than something to disguise. Isn't that beautiful? So when we see a broken dish, it's garbage. Like I dropped a part of our nativity scene and one of the wise men's heads just exploded. And his gift fell out, and so we got to buy a new nativity. When those types of breaks happen in these artists' eyes, they see something that can be renewed, made whole again, and can be useful. It's not the same as it was. It's a brand new thing. But now it's beautiful and can be used. Isn't that cool? And I think that Jesus does that with us. I think that we're broken, and I think that if we admit that and come before Jesus and say, you know what, I'm broken and I can't fix this anymore. Everything that I've done is just a cheap version of what you're going to do. I'm submitting my broken life to you, my broken heart. Whatever it is that's broken in you, God knows that. Ask him to search you and to know you and to reveal if there's any wickedness in you. And ask him to repair those things. Jesus will do that right here, right now. Isn't that cool? That's a hope that the Christian has. That's the solution to the problem. But then we read from John in the book of Revelation that Christians even have another hope. We've got this one hope right here and right now. Doesn't make this life lollipops and rainbows, it doesn't make things super awesome. I just prayed with a gal who believes in Jesus. She's in tears. Things are not going well. Okay? God doesn't promise everything's going to be super duper fun. Okay? But he does give us hope. He gives us hope in the future. And this is the second advent that we're talking about. We just celebrated Christ's first advent when he came as a child, but we're talking about the promise of the second advent when he comes again and he says, I will make all things new. So those cracks and those broken things and all that, those don't just get mended and made beautiful and used for, those are gone. Isn't that cool? Man, that gets me excited. And I think that he would declare us good, like at the very beginning. So, as we fall into the new year, I want to challenge us all to embrace Jesus in a brand new way. It's the season for resolutions, right? And I'm pro-resolution. I think New Year's resolutions are great. And that's actually what our next series is going to be about. And Kyle actually stole my line earlier. The next series is called Resolved, which is Christianity 101. Did you hear him say that? That's my line. He stole it from me from first service. But it is. It's Christianity 101, which just kind of gives you, here's what it means to be a Christian. Here's some things that you can resolve to do in your life to practice walking with Jesus and getting to know him better. None of these things save you. It's just a way to get to know Christ better and to allow him to mold and shape you into his image. That's what being a disciple is. Okay? So if you're interested in that, I invite you to come back with this 5-week commitment to be involved. Get involved in a gospel community. But I'd like us all to embrace Jesus in a new way. Now, for some of us, it's saying a prayer for the very first time. For others of us, it's saying a prayer for the first time in a long time. For some of us, it's continuing a pattern of continually praying. We're all in different spots, right? And Jesus meets all of us right in our own spot. So cool. Okay? Make a commitment to serve in a new way. We have gobs of places that needs people to help around here. I need people in the booth, people on the team, children's need people, we need greeters, we need all sorts of folks. If ever you see that all the posts are filled, don't be fooled, okay? Commit to serve Jesus in a new way. Make a commitment to give in a new way. Make a commitment to disciple or be discipled in a new way. Make a commitment to just submit to Jesus in a new way. Simply put, don't be complacent this year. The reality is that Jesus doesn't allow for complacency because he really, really existed and he is who he said he was and is. The reality of Jesus demands a response from us, and that response is either towards him or it's away from him. Nobody idles in one position with Jesus. And I think that today, even right now, is maybe the best time ever to make a new commitment like that. Did y'all know that was coming? Hey man, it's the gospel. It means good news. What kind of person would I be if I didn't share good news with you? The reality is, being a Christian is marked by a life of continually submitting to Jesus. So if you're a person who's going to say, well, I think I'd like to say this prayer for the first time today, or for the first time alone, I want to submit my life to Christ, and I want to begin to follow him. We say this prayer, the sinner's prayer, and I think in America, it's been Americanized. Like, all right, said a prayer, cool, I'm good. Me and Jesus are good now, so I'm going to go do the stuff I was always doing, I guess. I don't know. But I said the prayer, so no, that's not, see, being a Christian is a journey you walk with Jesus. Now, if I told you I was going to go to the lobby, if I said, hey guys, I'm going to go to the lobby right now. Okay, I did it. Am I in the lobby? Okay, okay, you're there? No, see, I got to actually walk all the way. See, we think this sinner's prayer is this, and we're good. And Jesus is like, hey, I'm still going somewhere. Come along. Okay? It's a continual process. It's a continual journey. That's why we talk about gospel communities, and that's why we talk about corporate worship, and that's why we talk about serving. Okay? Because all of those things are walking with Jesus. Okay? But if you were going to make that decision today, or renew that decision today, or make a commitment to do any of these things in a new way today, I want to encourage you that even as I'm talking, you can go ahead and ignore me. Some of you are like, I've been doing that the whole time. But you can grab that connection card that's in the pew, in the chair in front of you, and you can write on that like, I am committing to blah, 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 Jesus in a new way. You can write that down, okay? If it's a commitment, if it's something that you're resolved to do in the new year, that is maybe like, I'm resolving or I'm committing to read my Bible in a new way, you write that down, and I want you to take that with you, okay? If you are saying, I am resolving, I am committing to follow Jesus for the first time today, and that's new, I want you to write that on that little card. I think there's even a spot on there, okay? You can go ahead and grab those right now. I'd love to see people moving and do that. We're gonna apply some action to hopefully something you've learned today. Okay? If you have decided to follow Jesus for the first time today, I would love for you to bring me that card and let me know that. Okay? What we're gonna do now is we're going to, like we do every Sunday, we're gonna close by singing a song together. And the band can come back up. And the words of this song, I think, are everything that you would pray in this prayer that I'm talking about. It's a confession of the identity of who Christ is. And it says over and over, I believe that, I believe that, I believe that. And as we sing this, I want to encourage us to make it our prayer today, to be actively moving and pushing into the reality of who Jesus is, and to worship him like this is a new song that we've always known in our hearts forever, and to join in with what the angels are doing around the throne of God, which is worshiping all the time. They're giving God or showing him his worth, which is far beyond what our words can say, but we're going to try. So I'd love for you to stand and sing this song with us, and to sing it loud and confess Christ.